Dr. Calum Miller is a medical doctor and research fellow at the University of Oxford. Doctor, good evening to you. What are your thoughts on this?
Good evening. Hope you're well. Thank you for having me on again. I think this is a welcome development. Now, obviously, that will sound very surprising, especially given what you've already said, and in a country where most people do support a right to abortion up until a certain limit. But what I think we've seen over the last 50 years is that both in the UK and the US, women in particular, as public opinion polling shows, have become more and more dissatisfied with just how extreme our abortion laws in the UK and the US are. In the US, for example, it's pretty much constitutionally protected to have abortion for any reason up until birth. And most people, according to opinion polling, think that this is too radical. And I think most people listening to the show would probably agree. So
Well, is
when
that
we
true? Up to just total birth, you're allowed to have an abortion in America?
Yeah, so Roe v.
Not in
Wade allows
certain
abortion
states, you're not.
it allows abortion up to the second trimester for any reason at all, and then in the third trimester for health reasons. And the court is very clear that health reasons includes virtually anything. Just as in the UK, abortion is only allowed for health reasons, but we know abortion is effectively available for any reason at all, including, for example, sex-selective abortion.
I thought that's illegal, though. That's illegal.
And quite rightly too. Hang on. Obviously an abortion must be carried out as soon as it can. If you leave it as long as you're suggesting, it becomes a very dangerous thing to do, doesn't it? And I wasn't aware they did that in America. I think that's pretty awful. But, the problem I understand is that a lot of people get late abortions because when you want to have an abortion, you have to jump through so many hoops that it takes so much time. And some doctors, not suggesting it's you, of course, but some doctors make it very difficult for the woman to get an abortion. And surely as soon as a woman decides, I don't want to have a child, as quickly as possible, she should get, the morning after pill, get an abortion within the first couple of weeks, whatever, as soon as possible. That's what we want to head for, isn't it?
Well, I think, we do have research on why some abortions happen at a very late stage in pregnancy. And usually it's not because doctors are obstructive or because of lack of access. Usually it's because the woman doesn't realize she's pregnant until a very late stage, or she can't make up her mind until a very late stage. In many cases, it's because the child is disabled. So in the UK, for example, it's permissible to have an abortion up until birth for any disability at all, whether that's Down syndrome or cleft lip or cleft palate, the latter of which are easily correctable. So I think we do have an extreme law.
It is still up to the woman whose body this is affecting to make the decision. But I wouldn't really want to do that if, if it was I was involved. But then I wouldn't be involved because I'm a man.
Well, I think what I'd say firstly is that we have to have a law which tries to protect and support women and children. And I think it's unfortunate that some pro-lifers have given the impression that they only care about the child. I think we should be clear that we should try and have a balance of rights and a balance of respect and support for both the woman and her child. But I think most people, and as I say, public opinion polling suggests women are more pro-life than men. Most people do think there should be some point at which abortion shouldn't be allowed. For example, at 24 weeks, many people say that should be the cutoff because at that point the child is viable and because it's fully developed and conscious and able to feel pain and so on. But actually, most women in the UK think that it should be significantly reduced from 24 weeks. And that's not because they're anti-women. It's not because they're misogynistic. It's not because they want to control other women. It's because there is a recognition that medical science has shown us that this is a living human being.
But how many women?
Well, some say 18 weeks, don't they? There was 18 weeks.
Hang on, both of you. How many women want to have an abortion as late as that? Very few. And if a woman is I don't want to go through it. I don't want to have it. It's her body. Why would anybody force somebody to do something like that, to bring a human being into the world? I mean, I suppose if it's viable, then the child could be taken away and could be put up for adoption. And if the child is viable, it will be better to induce a pregnancy rather than do anything else, surely.
Well, you would think that's the case, but most abortion providers, and as I said, the law of the land in the United States is that abortion is legal even past viability. In fact, in the UK, it's legal past viability up until 24 weeks, whereas viability is only 22 weeks. And as I said, it's up to
Viability
birth in the case
depends,
of
doesn't it?
But
disability.
it would be murder, wouldn't it, if someone actually did it themselves? You know what I mean? If someone killed that baby in the womb, it would actually be murder.
Well, it would
So I think that the legal
legally.
question is clear. I don't think officially, legally, it would count as murder, but I
Think from
recognise
terrorist
and-
bombs, there was twins killed once, and I think at a certain point it is considered murder of another person.
Colin, let's not get off the subject. Quite a lot of doctors as well get very sniffy about the fact a woman goes and says, "Look, I think I might be pregnant." "Yes, you are." "Well," she said, my contraception didn't work the other day, and or I forgot, whatever. And then some doctors say, "Oh, well, abortion is not a form of contraception." But if a woman actually thought of abortion as a form of contraception, would you really want to have her as a mother?
I think we're in very dangerous territory if we start saying who is capable and not capable of being a mother. Now, I think
I don't
there
think
are
we are at
cases
all.
that have-
Why would you think that? Why would you think that?
Well, I think-
If a woman says
think-
to you, "I don't want this child," right? Why would you force her to have one?
Well, I think this comes back to what your colleague was saying earlier, which is that this is at some
No
point in the
colleague of mine. I
pregnancy
don't
an
know who he
unborn
is. He just came
baby.
in. No,
Well, you don't know who I am either, but
yeah, the fact
If I
is,
could-
but you are an expert, a doctor, and whatever. Mind you, you are at the University of Oxford, which is a pretty wokey place, isn't it, at the moment? But anyway, why on earth would anybody consider that they should tell another human being what to do with their body? And if that human being, for whatever reason, doesn't want to have a child, then she should be helped to get that abortion as soon as possible. And you agree with that, don't you?
Well, let me try and lay out exactly what the pro-life position says. It says that much like most people, we think there should be limits on bodily autonomy. So it sounds like you potentially also agree that there should be some limit on the term limit for abortion, whether that's viability or somewhere else. Almost everyone in the UK, including the overwhelming majority of women, think that abortion past a certain point of pregnancy shouldn't be allowed. Now, we might
It's got
say
nothing to
all of
do
and
with
in fact,
them. Sorry,
well,
hang
this
on.
is-
It has nothing to do with anyone other than the woman concerned herself. And if a woman decides for whatever reason, and if it's a viable stage, then abortion is not, the baby should be induced and put up for adoption if the person doesn't want at a viable stage to have the child. But I don't want it to get to that situation. I want somebody to feel that they can go to a doctor as soon as they've missed a period, as soon as they've found out they're pregnant, and have that situation dealt with. Why would any organisation? I mean, pro-life. What does that mean? It's just a bunch of people who want to impose their views on everybody else. Lots of them fueled by rather ridiculous religious ideals. So why can't we get away from this and say sensibly, if you want to have an abortion, if you find yourself pregnant, you don't want to have a child, as soon as possible, we want to get you into hospital and sort that out for you. What's wrong with that?
I think
What have you got
yeah,
against
if I
that?
can explain, I think what we've already
Yeah, I would
said
like
is
you
that,
to.
once the child is viable, then we
No,
shouldn't
no,
be
let's not
allowed
talk about
to
once
end
the
its
child
life.
is viable. Answer
Well,
the question
is-
that I put to you.
I am answering the question, and I'm using
No, you're
your
not. You
position
keep
as
going
an
on about
example.
viability. Forget viability.
What I'm saying,
Why would you not
what I'm saying
want,
is
as soon as somebody wants to have an abortion, as early as possible, why would that not be something you would help with?
so if you'll let me explain, all of us agree that at some point in the pregnancy, and we all disagree about where in the pregnancy or when in the pregnancy abortion should be restricted.
Well, where do you
but
think
we
it
all
is?
think that at some
Where
point,
do you think that point is?
we all think at some point that abortion should
Now
be
answer the
limited
question.
precisely for this reason. I'm answering
Doctor,
it now. For this
answer
reason.
the question. No, you're not.
am,
You're
but
going
you
around
keep
the
interrupting me.
houses like every other flipping politician, which of course is basically what you are. Why would you want to impose your views on another human being?
The answer is very simple. And the answer is that this is a case where there's not just one human being, but two human beings, one of which is an unborn child and one of which is a woman. Now, both of those are infinitely valuable and have full access to the basic human rights, including the right to life. Now, what that means is that in some cases, it gets very difficult because one person's life is tied up with another person's life. And when in that sort of situation, we have to make the best.
We're getting into the
compromise we
situation,
can,
Doctor, we're getting
protecting
into the
both lives.
situation where you're beginning to annoy me, and that isn't good, okay? So I'm asking you sensible questions, and you're patronising me like that bloke we had on yesterday from wherever, and I'm getting a bit fed up with it. So this is the question. Why, when a woman wants to have an abortion, it's her life, never mind about the other life inside for the while, forget that, because that...
But that's
has
his
not
point,
been
isn't
born,
it? That's his actual point.
you know.
That's his
Yeah,
point.
but the problem is, if you made abortion easier for women to obtain, they could get it earlier, and it will be a lot easier because presumably, I didn't realise, but presumably you are a pro-life person and you don't want to see anybody having an abortion. Am I right?
Except where the woman's life is at risk. I think that's right. I think we should try and find a balance that preserves both lives. And
So
that
what would you do?
respects the
How do
woman
you
and supports
justify?
her.
Yeah, okay. How do you then justify your position as a doctor? How can you carry on as a doctor? And mind you, you're at the University of Oxford, and they're all going a bit loopy around there, aren't they? At the moment, getting rid of pictures of the Queen and everything else. I mean, how on earth can somebody like you be a research fellow? I mean, you're just trying to find ways of making women do what you want them to do. That is appalling.
I'm sorry you feel that way. What I would say is that, in fact, the basis of medicine goes back to a pro-life position. The Hippocratic Oath explicitly prohibits abortion. And until very recently in human history, pretty much every medical profession was agreed that abortion contradicted the medical profession's values.
Yeah. Well, you know,
World
here we
Medical
are in the
Association-
21st century, buddy, right? We're in the 21st century. Lots of people having lots of sex, and sometimes people become pregnant when they don't want to have a child. Why are some, in my view, idiotic people who sticking their noses into other people's lives, like the pro-life ones, usually for some sort of religious twaddle, why don't you get a life? Why don't you actually stop trying to impose your views on other people?
Well, I think the answer is quite clear, is that this is a child, and that when there is a child
Oh,
involved,
for
we
goodness
have to
sake.
put the
I'm
child's
sorry,
best
Calum.
interest
Thank you very
first.
much indeed. I've had enough. Don't want any more. Dr. Calum Miller, medical doctor and research fellow at the University of Oxford. Thank you. I think